Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to This Week in Tyranny. Thank you for joining me. It is episode 149. It is an incredibly awkward episode for me so far. My setup has changed. We're continuing with this thing now, changing up the format of the show. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to get up and get rolling. Hopefully, you can hear me all right, but I'm not going to do any editing, no do overs. It's just going to be what it is. And possibly there may be some other interruptions because my neighbors are moving in downstairs, so there's been drilling, hammering, all kind of fun stuff going on. Good. The more the merrier. I apologize if any of these interruptions piss you off. I know things like that piss me off. So I'm going to get right into it. Now, there's going to be a featured story that I want to talk about, kind of the way we usually do it here. But to begin, I'd like to just really do the news. We're going to go straight through the news. So here we go. I got my window right here. This is how I usually do things, right? I just type in news and I go to Google News. Because it aggregates all of it, it collects all of it, and this is without planning anything. You'll just see me go through it. I don't want to spend too much time on this. I'm thinking like maybe 5 to 10 minutes on this. Trump declares Gaza war to be over as he heads to Israel ahead of the hostages' release. So people have been asking me about this whole Gaza peace deal, and it's kind of like the boy cried wolf kind of a thing because we already had a ceasefire that was going on, and then of course the ceasefire broke down. Now this happens a couple of times because Israel as a country, as a state, as a nation is known to break their word. They're known to break agreements, and really it's not just to say everything is Israel's fault, right? Because the history of breaking agreements for world superpowers and just countries engaged in geopolitical turmoil, that's well known. The Warsaw Pact, and all the time you'll get you'll get a deal, and then people think that because it's a signed deal, because it's an agreement between nations, then they're going to honor it. At the end of the day, I don't trust any kind of an agreement like that between nations. So here it seems like maybe the war in the Gaza will be over, but I don't expect the genocide to stop. I don't really expect things to change, right? A lot of this is just PR and so on and so forth. So it's one of these things that I won't spend too much time on, because at the end of the day, we're not really talking about what's going on over there in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. We're really talking about like the approval rating of Netanyahu versus Trump and what can he do, right? This whole thing, that it's very interesting that the American president is like the main that's the main person we're looking at as for affecting two countries that he has, that he's thousands of miles away from, the effect that he has on a war. And really it's not a war, right? Because it's not even an autonomous, it's not even like a country going to war with a country. It's just the military going in on civilians, saying that it's terrorists, saying that they're infiltrators. Oh, it's similar to what's going on in this country, right? So there's that. Vance says administration will keep fighting to send National Guard to Chicago. Yeah, they're going to keep fighting, and this is what I see now. Of course, I've spoke out against the federalization, the militarization of policing, and this, we're going to talk about it actually today, how depraved and sick it is that people are okay with sending military troops to cities like Chicago, like Los Angeles. But this fight, right, that now J.B. Pritzker and the mayor, what's his name, Brandon Johnson, the fact that people are actually standing behind them now because they're fighting against the federal government, right? They're fighting against Trump. I've seen the same thing in some of these newspapers, like I don't know if it's the Guardian or the Atlantic. They have this banner and disclaimer that they're saying you can trust us to fight against Trump. We won't back down to them. But these are the people that were spreading lies and propaganda, especially around 2020. And they have been, right? So these are not the good guys. But as you're seeing here from this NPR article, right? Of course, left-leaning. So they're going to keep fighting Vance says they're going to keep fighting, and they're going to look like they're fighting each other. They're really not fighting. There are really no two parties. Okay, you want to see a real two-party thing going on? You should watch MMA or turn to watch football. It's 6:36 as I'm recording this. This is actually the latest show I've ever done. I've never actually done it this late on Sunday. So maybe I shouldn't spend that much time on the headlines. Let's see some of these other headlines. Health. Death rates are rising in young adults in Eastern Europe. That is interesting. Now, I expect death rates to go up. Increasing mental health disorders are among the concerning trends in the Global Burden of Disease report. Now, what would be the reason for mental health disorders going up? I absolutely think it would be related to the amount of just the way that life is very fake, and that is going to be tied in with these electronics, with social media. I really do see it that way. That's interesting they point out Eastern Europe, because in Eastern Europe there has been a kind of a pull towards traditional values. And you've kind of even seen that with the popularity of Charlie Kirk, and a lot of these, especially young adult men, are saying, wait a minute, the world is not working out for me anymore. We should go back to how it was, right? Church, and then arranged marriages and things like that, because it's, at the end of the day, this isn't a this isn't a great big mystery to what is behind a mental health crisis. Well, what is required for a man to be mentally healthy, especially a young man? To have a girl around, to have a woman, and to be free, to not be being pushed around and told what to do. Like, guys, for a guy to be happy, it's really not that difficult. I'd say that water is a little bit more murky when it comes to girls, but still, I really think that the most important thing for mental health is physical activity, like physical exercise. I really do think so. It's kind of a cliche, but it's to a large degree, I think, true. That when a guy's having a mental health struggle, he goes to the gym and feels better. Yeah, I really think that's the way it is. Now, they'll give you all these other things on Google News, so you could scroll down and you'll get fashion and beauty, right? Like, I'm not really looking for that too much, but we could go to World and see some things going on around the world. Afghanistan and Pakistan. Global headlines. Donald Trump scrambles to seal the deal, right? This is crazy. He's not even involved, right? This is between other nations. So world news are something else entirely. At least 44 people dead after torrential rains in Mexico. That's very, very unfortunate. At the end of the day, I don't know which of these disasters are pre-planned and caused, but a lot of them are pre-planned and caused. And actually, we're going to maybe transition from that to our featured topic, which is going to be, they've arrested the guy that earlier this year in January, he's accused of starting the Palisades wildfire in California. So it turns out that all those wildfires that were going on in western Southern California, they were actually started by arson. They were actually set by somebody, and we're going to go to that now. No, this is Palisades fire. So it's January 2025. The topic at the time was man-made climate change caused disasters. I did an episode about that in, I think, 2023. There comes out the United Nations, I think, report of the greatest risks, and they were anticipating the risks of these climate change caused disasters, that there were going to be all these wildfires and earthquakes, and all of this is going to be due to climate change. I talked about what usually causes disasters, which is malice, intention, planning, doing things on purpose, right? But I'm surprised to see the narrative go this way, because it turns out actually someone did set the fires on purpose, like I was saying, but I wasn't expecting the narrative to be that somebody set the fire. right? So I hope you're seeing this kind of a monkey wrench in this scenario. Now, these Palisades fires, the Palisades fire was a highly destructive wildfire that began burning in the Santa Monica Mountains of the Los Angeles County on January 7th, 2025. Now, I highlight January 7th because that's the day after January 6th, right? That there's foreshadowing there is going to be, that's going to be part of this story here. Now, overall, these wildfires, this is the third most destructive California wildfire on record and the most destructive to occur in the history of the city of Los Angeles. It's one of the deadliest. Now, the Palisades fire is one of them, right? This was a series of more of them. So let's click on that and see what this is. Now, January 7th to January 31st. Eden Fire and the Palisades Fire was the two of them. Both of them were fully contained by the end of January. They were some of the most destructive. Now, this is the interesting part here, this last paragraph. In October 2025, a 29-year-old man was arrested for allegedly starting the Palisades Fire. The man is accused of intentionally setting a fire in the Pacific Palisades on January 1st, which was known as the Lockman Fire. This is the name, okay? It was thought to be extinguished, but strong winds on January 7th led to a rekindling of the fire that quickly spread. Keep that in mind, the Lockman Fire and the rekindling. Okay, this is going to be part of the story. What I thought was interesting is the human contributing factors here. Some of this was, it was a talking point at the time, but not all of it. One was that the local firefighting budgets, they happened to, in 2024, cut the funding. So, long story short, I see these things happen, like the things that went on before 9/11 and before some of these mass shootings, that, yeah, we were supposed to be a response, but something happened before that happened to ensure that there was no good response like it usually should be, and one thing led to another, and we had a huge deadly crisis, a lot of loss of life, a lot of destruction. That happens again and again with some of these disasters, which is why I always say it smells like a false flag, okay? Because these are the things that progress the agenda. The California wildfires absolutely did. So one of these things, that it was the local firefighting budgets, I don't think that's an accident. Other things, construction management, the electric grid, I see these as being even like UN climate change talking points. There's a lot of talk about the strain on the electric grid, also the strain that is put on the electric grid due to AI and all of these data centers, right? But I won't get too far into that. But this right here, water supplies. Now, some of you remember this because the firefighters actually ran out of water. Imagine that, they ran out of water. And then there was supposed to be in 1961, there was a huge wildfire, and they constructed the Santa Ynez Reservoir. They had a huge reservoir of water that was supposed to have water for exactly this occurrence. But in 2024, they actually, turned out there was a tear, completely emptied. On January 7th, it was discovered that it was completely emptied to repair a tear in this cover right around this time. And now this is January 7th, 2024, it looks like. So, yeah, originally planning to have it repaired back in use by April 2024. So, if you're tracking this, I didn't even know this, right? I'm reading this together with you guys. This is January 7th last year. And exactly a year later is when this wildfire happens and it's discovered, hey, we don't have any water because this reservoir was empty. To me, that is absolutely not an accident. This was intentional, and I don't mean just the arsonist starting it is intentional. I mean by the various groups of aligned interests. Okay, the people that profit from chaos and disaster. Chaos and disaster, it is the weapon of totalitarian governments, which is really the main feature of the story, which we'll talk about. Let's go towards that now, right? When you're trying to establish a totalitarian government, you want big chaos. You want big disaster so you can clamp down. So people are disoriented. They don't know up from down. And when you point in a certain direction, people go there. That's the whole point. So now let's see who this guy is, right? This guy, Jonathan Rinderknecht. Jonathan Rinderknecht, 29 years old, Uber driver from Florida. This is the guy, okay? Now they discovered this. There was some stuff about ChatGPT. He was looking up, can a cigarette start a fire? Something about a burning city. He was listening to a French rap song that had a lot of fires in it. So, did he start the fire? Did he not? I have no reason to think that he didn't, right? But this is the thing. I kind of talked about this, like how easy it is to start a fire, and now whoever the patsy is to do it doesn't really matter. So, it wasn't climate change, according to this narrative, right? But it still progresses. The climate change agenda still progresses. But I'm not really talking about that so much, right? I want to talk about how you form totalitarian governments through chaos like this, especially fires, because there's a parallel here. Long story, long story short, this is going to be about the Nazis and the creation of the Nazi regime and the Reichstag fire. This is what stood out to me when I saw this guy's last name is Rinderknecht, because that's a German last name. I thought, hey, that's weird, like I'm used to American names for these things, like especially the middle names, right? Like American names, sometimes they're weird, but usually they're very typical. Like you very rarely are gonna get like a Rodriguez, right? Even though we have so many Hispanic people in this nation, but they're always just these typical names. I think of like John Benet Ramsey, and it's very Nancy Grace, right? It's very 10 o'clock news. But these names, I pulled on this thread, right? Rinderknecht. What is this? And you see him here, Jonathan Rinderknecht, and some of these other these names, Swiss, German, Swiss. So it's Switzerland and Germany where this name comes from. So I immediately, my mind went to this thing that I've talked about several times on my show, which is the Reichstag fire. And I've referred to this Reichstag fire as the quintessential false flag. This is the original false flag to me that I always use as the example. When people, I don't know what people think about 9/11, the attacks on September 11th, but that's, it's crazy that in these years people still have not grasped the impossibility of two buildings collapsing into their footprint, right? Things like that. But the Reichstag fire is a great example because everybody sees what Hitler did to come to power, shutting down political opponents, taking over totalitarian rule, galvanizing the country. His speeches are studied as for like neuro-linguistic programming. But they did all this thanks to the Reichstag fire. This was one of the big events that normal political life was shut down, and it became militaristic. It became a state of war, like martial law. Not exactly in that sense, it wasn't called martial law, but that's what happened here. So the Reichstag fire was an arson attack on the Reichstag building, the home of the German parliament in Berlin, on Monday, February 27th, 1933. Precisely 4 weeks after Adolf Hitler was sworn in as chancellor, right? So there's that perfect timing. The Nazis attributed the fire to a group of communist agitators. They used it as a pretext to claim that communists were planning against the German government. Now, the president then issued the Reichstag fire decree suspending civil liberties. This is the key. Suspending civil liberties and to pursue a ruthless confrontation with the communists. This made the fire pivotal in the establishment of Nazi Germany. So this is classic, right? And of course, this fire was apparently started by Marinus van der Lubbe, a Dutch council communist. He was said to be the culprit, right? Of course, he was not the culprit, right? Now, I'm surprised by this, that I thought, and for the longest, it's like common knowledge that the Reichstag fire was started by the Nazis. It was clearly set up this way so they could take over. But what I was surprised to find out that a lot of mainstream historians say he acted alone. There's even, yeah, there it is right here. So van der Lubbe and the four communists were the defendants in a trial that started in 1933. So there were he had four co-defendants. It ended in the acquittal of the four communists and the conviction of van der Lubbe, who was then executed. It is unclear whether he acted alone. The consensus among historians is that the Reichstag was set ablaze by van der Lubbe, and somewhere here there's the actual phrase that almost all historians agree that he acted alone, even though there were four co-defendants, and even though what actually happened is, you see here, he confessed and claimed to have acted alone. Let's see. No need to get into this. I want to show you this. This is what I was. This is a Dutch article in which that shows. Now this is the guy, right? Van der Lubbe. He really reminds me of this guy, Jonathan Rinderknecht. It's a young guy, seems a little bit clueless, like kind of a schmuck, and this is the guy that created this great, tragic, terrible event, right? But this is an article which I kind of want to show you this. You know, you have a translate function right here, which I hope works. That's funny that it wouldn't work. That never happens to me. Usually my stuff works pretty fast. Anyway, if you go to translate this article, it actually shows that there is a affidavit by one of the SS officers, or actually it wasn't the SS at this point. It was the Sturmabteilung. It was the SA, right? So, but the point is, it's the police, the German police, basically with a court certified document saying they drove this guy here. They drove this van der Lubbe guy to the Reichstag, and the Reichstag was already on fire. That's what it says. Okay, here, I got it to work. So you're going to get kind of a rough translation. Marinus van der Lubbe exonerates the statement. That's bad word order. It means this is the statement exonerating Marinus van der Lubbe. A document found in the archives of the court in Hanover, Germany, exonerates the Dutchman Marinus van der Lubbe. Okay, he was suspected of setting fire to the Reichstag in 1933 during the period when the Nazis came to power. This document contains a statement by a member of the then Nazi gang SA, the Sturmabteilung. Let's see if we have some quotes. This is the SA man Hans Martin Lennings. He had a statement notarized in 1955 in which he says that van der Lubbe could not have started the fire. He took the Dutchman to the Reichstag by car. Upon arrival, he and some colleagues noticed that the burning smell hanging there and a light smoke. It shows that the fire had already been started, probably by the Nazis themselves, right? Whether that's fully true, who knows? Why am I going to believe a Sturmabteilung guy 10 years after the war? Absolutely not. But this is the thing, and I always say this about false flags. I don't need to get into the little details and the minutiae, because that's not what's important. It's clear and obvious that they started this fire, because look what it led to. And now it is clear and obvious what I see happening with Israel and what they're doing in Gaza and what's going on in America, right? The things that are going on with the violence in the streets. And I don't mean people killing each other in the streets, but I mean the mass roundups and arrests that are going on in cities like my city of Chicago. This is violence in the streets, and it is getting very close. This is a continuation of last week, where I made the case for armed rebellion. I didn't call for it. I just said that there's a case for it if it happens, and that's not going away, right? We are inching towards that, and this is the kind of show that this is. This is a behind the enemy lines type of show, because it is very close, and you're closer to it than you think that you may see This Week in Tyranny coming to you from a different state or a different country or from a jail cell. It's very possible, right? Because that is the normalization of people, not your regular police force, but a gang, a paramilitary gang, taking people away from the off of the streets, right, and imprisoning them, people not knowing their whereabouts. This is no longer the rule of law here, right? We're talking about rule by force, okay? Very animalistic behavior, very totalitarian behavior, just like in the streets of Germany, where they had things like the Reichstag fire and even before. So let's go back to it now. Let's look at some of these parallels, right? But let me just point this out. They said with the Reichstag fire that it proved that this guy, because he was a communist, it proved that the communists were starting a coup, right? That they wanted to take over. And this allowed Hitler to take all this executive power. Think of it logically. What sense would it make to set a building on fire where there's nobody in there? Nobody in there. You're not taking down anybody who's in there. You're doing it in the middle of the night when there's nobody in there. And it's like a symbol of the rule of law, and you're going to set that on fire. What kind of support is that going to get you? It's the worst thing you could possibly do. It's like if you want to take down a hornet's nest, and you don't spray it with Raid, you don't spray it with water, you don't knock it down with a bat. You just run up to it, shake it the fuck around, and stand there. And that's what the Reichstag fire would be if the official story is true. It makes absolutely no sense that they would do that. So I don't believe it, right? And I'm bringing this up to make two connections in the context of the bigger Germany connection, okay? One is the connection with this Patsy, this Marinus Vanderloop guy. We saw the article. Oh yeah, I want to show you the names, okay? So let's do that really quick. I'm gonna have to do some quick production work here. Let's see. Not as easy as I thought, but that's okay. I had a translation. I had a translation window, so I could show you the names. Okay, here we go. I should get them here now, but I will not be able to, and that's all right. That's okay. Here we go. Okay, we managed to do it. Rinderknecht, what that name actually means is like cow wrangler. They're saying like cowboy, right? Rinder means bovine, which is cattle, right? So this guy that started the Palisades fire, Rinderknecht. Now Knecht means servant, right? Or some kind of a worker. So you're talking about a cattle hand. You're talking about cowboy. Okay, what that means to me is, well, first, okay, so keep that in mind. This is like a cowboy, cattle servant, right? Now this other one, Vanderlub, a lub is a like a lubber, that's like a lub is a very, it's like a clumsy guy, right? It's a clumsy name, not very sharp, but also it's got the Germanic lut or lud, like of the people. Lud actually in Polish, lud is like a people, like a nation of people. So it's got the connection to the Germanic lud, which means people, like a whole nation of people. So Vanderlub is like a Dutch name that means of the people. Okay, and this guy was a communist, right? Now what's his name? Rinderknecht is also like a liberal, right? He made anti-Trump posts, which is not surprising at all. He was just like a typical 29-year-old guy, right? They both have the same name to me. It's just like one of the sheep. He's the typical patsy, typical fall guy. This is why I wanted to get into the translation. Sorry for how long it took. And actually, we're going to come back to that. This whole thing about the cattle and the sheep and the people. Generally, this commune, right? This communist thing. But let's move on. So that's the one connection I wanted to make with the patsy. The second one is the connection to the Reichstag being the capital. Okay, the capital is this. this thing. And now we're looking at January 6th, the January 6th Capitol attack in 2021. That was a big deal. Maybe it wasn't as big of a deal to us, but it was intended to be a big deal. It was a big deal in the news, and it is definitely a big deal in the political narratives that are going on. Now, if you recall, this Palisades fire was supposed to be, it was rekindled, okay, it was supposed to be extinguished, but it was on January 7th, the day after that this fire started ablaze. It was rekindled. And this was also the day that they shut down that reservoir in 2024, right? January 7th, the day after. And January 6th, this was the day where it was attacked by a mob of supporters of President Donald Trump in an attempted self-coup. This is the story, right? I'm not talking about what I think happened on January 6th. I'm just saying that this is a clear, coordinated event. They had a lot of these guys. They had an InfoWars guys there, right? Owen Schroyer. There were a lot of players of some of these groups, like the Proud Boys and different, could we say, militia type groups. And that's relevant now because, remember, we're talking about the Nazis and the totalitarian rise of Nazi Germany. I remember back in 2020 when, or even before, when they were talking about Donald Trump being a fascist and a Nazi. It was ridiculous then, right? We all laughed at that because he would say the simplest things like, hey, maybe we should take care of the American economy. And the reaction was like, oh my God, he's literally Hitler. Can you say anything worse? This is unbelievable. It's literally violence what he's talking about. This is what people were saying, right? Of course, it was ridiculous then. It's not so ridiculous anymore because of these militia groups becoming more and more empowered, because of federal troops, paramilitary type troops going wild in the streets and rounding up civilians. So it is exactly 4 years ago that this wildfire gets out of control. And the connection, the reason it's compelling to me is because this kind of a riot, it's got the parallels of the beer hall putsch, and here it is. This is part of political violence in Germany from 1918 to 1933. This is 1923, so this is 10 years before the Reichstag fire. This is before Hitler really comes to power, right? But he is making moves at this time. The storm is brewing. Remember, he went to jail. There were assassination attempts on him, right? All of these things, and he actually... this was a failed coup d'etat by Hitler in Munich. So they tried to actually take over Munich, and then people died in this, right? It was like a little military. It was like a little. Let's see what it actually was. Belligerence, right? So they list it like a war. Casualties: 15 killed on the Nazi side, 4 killed on the other side, right? Many captured and imprisoned. So this is serious, right? Imagine 15 Republicans being killed in a clash in the streets. Like, that would be insane in a major city, right? Now, this was inspired by Benito Mussolini's March on Rome. So at the same time, there was this Nazi party thing in Germany, right? There was also Mussolini in Italy. And I think this is incredible. But before we get to this, let's just take it slow, right? The Lachmann Fire, which is another German name, which is interesting. I don't know why it's called that. It was reported put out on January 7th. You got these winter fires, rekindled empires, violence in the streets, and these parallels between Trump and Hitler now, which is, you had failed assassination attempts. You had political persecution. He's talking about rekindling an empire. Both of these guys, that's what they talked about. Now, Hitler was actually locked up and saying these things, and he wrote Mein Kampf. Trump now couldn't be locked up in prison because he's too senile, right? He's too fucking old. He's too impotent. He couldn't be in jail, right? But MAGA, Make America Great Again, this is the same sentiment that Adolf Hitler was going out there with, to bring this empire back. It's this idea of, look what happened in the war, World War One, there was the Treaty of Versailles that basically crushed us. And why are we paying for all of these sins that we didn't commit? We should get back together as one people, and we're going to become great again. This is the whole idea, actually. And January 6th was it wasn't anything close to the beer hall putsch, but this is like a little insurrection. It at least had that parallel. It's at least a reference, at the very least, right? It's not quite a riot, but there are clear, not quite a riot on the Capitol, but there are clear overlaps there, right? The beer hall putsch was not by the Reichstag, but the Capitol riot was by the equivalent of the Reichstag. But it's incredible because people do the same type of things. The beer hall putsch was inspired by the March on Rome, so they had something in Italy that was just the same, and with these militias and one militia usurping another, that's what ended up happening in Nazi Germany. And this is what I think is going to happen again in the United States, where we have, as the siren goes off, you see your typical civilian enforcement of law on civilians is done by the police. That's what's typical. But now you've got this border patrol, you've got ICE in the streets, you've got people with masks on, military uniforms, getting you more used to rubber bullets, riot shields, tear gas, things like that would not have flown. It definitely would not have passed before the Patriot Act. And this is why false flags happen. So there's more chaos, and you are more accepting of bullshit treatment. We are being treated like animals, and it is not right. Very simple. So I want to show you a bit about the Sturmabteilung. This is the essay. This already is not the police, but this was the Nazi Party's own troops. They were called the Storm Division or Stormtroopers. There was the original paramilitary organization under Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party of Germany. Okay? So there was an actual force behind them, like a militia. This was a militia. Okay? Now they tried to say the Proud Boys are exactly that for Donald Trump, and there are some people, some militias that would do that. Of course, I don't think we have anything close to that. I don't think we have anything close to it as far as these militias. But then again, you don't need a militia. You have the United States military, the biggest gang. You don't need a paramilitary force. It's an actual military force. But anyway, let's go back to it right here. They were called the brown shirts because of the color of their shirts, right? Similar to Benito Mussolini's black shirts. Now I want to point that out as well. Let's go into the black shirts. Okay, I already had it open. The black shirts were called the Voluntary Militia for National Security. And when I say people do the same kinds of things, this is what I'm talking about. National security, homeland security, defending the homeland, our culture, our race, dealing with all this bull crap that our country has been through. And now you've got a voluntary militia of people that are coming together, and it's got hints of freedom. It sounds like freedom and liberty and taking our country back, but of course it's not, because the Nazis were not the good guys. The fascists in Italy were not the good guys. It was just another fucking swindle. It was just a different kind of totalitarian government. And doesn't this sound like Border Patrol and ICE? The founders of the paramilitary groups were nationalist intellectuals, former army officers, and young landowners opposing peasants and country laborers' unions. So the socialists were the enemies, which is interesting, because this is socialism. MAGA is socialism. See, people don't see the repeating patterns going on here. And it sounds like these guys. I saw a car like this. I drove past it last week, and it had a skull. It was like a blacked out, everything black, tinted windows truck, or like a bigger SUV. I don't know exactly, but it was like, I think it was a pickup truck. and it had a big skull on it, just like this, and I saw the quote on top of it, like where you have the, the sun strip against the sun on top of the windshield. You had "God will judge our enemies," and that sounds like a badass quote. And that's because it is a well-known motto associated with the United States Navy SEALs. I actually looked this up, and they have the Punisher skull on there. And when I see freaking skulls and all black and these ballsy quotes and slogans, this is what totalitarianism is. This is what the Nazi Party is. You're gonna have these groupings, these gangs of these people that are feeling emboldened to terrorize people in the streets, and it's supported by the current government. This is the far right-ism that I was warning people of, that may happen in Trump's second term, but people didn't believe me then, right? Because of course that sounded like a liberal talking point. But this is the way it happens, that they cry wolf. You have the boy that cried wolf again and again and again. And then and you'll have the liberals talking about something for 10 years, so everybody thinks that it's bullshit. And then when the time comes that they're actually right, nobody believes them. It's a classic strategy, and they use the same kind of strategies over and over again. Like I said, now this is nothing new. Black cars, black face mask. We've seen this before. And now the Sturmabteilung got replaced with the SS in Nazi Germany. And you had the Gestapo and these guys. They just get more and more violent, more black skulls and crazy and really dark occult, really satanic, and that's how it goes. Guys, please get this false duality. I know the libtards are libtards. I know the progressives are lost, so they're talking so bad about Trump. Oh my God, he's the worst. They're right about this. Everyone who is talking about violence in the streets right now, about the raids in the streets, they're correct. They happen to be correct. Forget all of the rhetoric about violent criminals from other countries and the invasion. They're going after like elderly ladies. They're going after women in the streets. Think about it. This is fucking injustice. This is crazy. They happen to be correct right now, okay? Yes, they're snowflakes, but they're right about this. They happen to be right, okay? If you want to say dead clock is right twice a day, say that. But it's true. Don't get pulled into this bullshit. It doesn't mean they're right about anything else. They're right about this, okay? When you look at the old videos of Nazism and you see the black and white piles of bodies, and you always ask yourself, how could that have happened? How come that happened? It wasn't even that long ago in history, and it happened in front of the whole world. Like, why didn't nobody stand up to it? This is how it happens. It's happening right now, and people are not really standing up in any significant way, because it looks like the only people really protesting are the liberals, right? Everybody's protesting against to be pro-Palestine, right? They're the snowflakes. They're the ones who are wearing the face masks still, right? They were the ones trying to lock everybody up during the pandemic. So half this country doesn't support them when they need the support. And you may not like the guy on the bike that was that was yelled at the guys in Chicago and then got away on a bike, but that's not your enemy, right? Your enemy is those guys in the uniforms. They are. And if you're one of those guys in the uniforms, you better get out of that uniform, because you're going to get burned in it. That's what the fuck's going to happen. And I don't want to talk tough, right? Because this is the issue that happens is when I say things like, hey, I'm ready to strike back. Then those guys in uniforms, those guys that are sitting there eating dinner with their family, are thinking, yeah, look, it's going to make them more defensive, more fearful, more aggressive toward people. So it's really, it's a double-edged sword there. But at the same time, I'm not going quietly, because I'm not going to be one of those people that did nothing, and then you'll see in 200 years, if the world is still around, piles of bodies again, and they're gonna say, what did they do? Why didn't America stand up? The great America just let a totalitarian regime Like the founding fathers would turn in their grave, right? The American revolutionaries. How is it that easy to bring America to their knees? This is how. Because you guys aren't doing anything about it. And this should be the number one talking point right now. Fuck the headlines. Fuck all the stuff that's going on. You got troops in the streets. Now, I know it's only a few cities, right? So, but this is why I'm the tip of the spear in this right here. Because it's happening in my city right now. There are people that I know that are not here anymore, that have gotten rounded up off the streets and taken away. None of them were criminals, you know. So, you know, I stand by what I said last week, and I'm gonna say more this week because I'm more calm this week, right? I'm not just gonna talk about rebellion. I'm gonna talk about the principle behind it. So I'm American in principle. So I will not accept paramilitary action against civilians in the streets. It's not going to happen. No cartels, no hit squads, no militias, nothing. There's nothing American about that. Okay? It's not that kind of a militia, right? Here, we live by individual rights. The freedom to make a living, taking actions against actual criminals, not rounding up people in the streets that you suspect of being criminals, right? They did that to the Japanese in World War II, right? So obviously this country has committed many sins in the past. That was anti-American, of course. And now they're taking it further against the Hispanic and the Polish population, right? It's true. The principles of this country had been crumbling long before this, right? And everyone who works for that government now is part of that. You're part of that destruction of this beautiful nation. You may not be the hammer in that action, but you're definitely the chisel. You're one or the other. You're either a primary psychopath or a secondary psychopath, right? Now, to everybody who wears the black bandana and the military gear, be afraid. You should be afraid. Let me go back to the window so you can see who I'm talking about, because I typed this in, Border Patrol in Chicago. It's these guys, right? Like we'll refresh it to get current images, okay? Look at this. Look at these guys. This is the guy on the bicycle that I was talking about. Forget it. We'll just scroll through the pictures. I'm not going to make them full screen. This is, why are they wearing camo? Why are they wearing black bandanas? I mean, this is the kind of shit you see in UK rap videos. These are supposed to be officials, like law enforcement officials. These are not law enforcement officials. Why is Border Patrol in the city, right? Kids have to go out and see this shit. They say, why are the soldiers in the city? What the fuck do you say to them? This kind of a shit. 3-4 guys taking down women. They're busting out of minivans. They're in a goddamn Toyota Sienna and a Honda Odyssey. Full troops with full assault rifles. Are you kidding me? These people, and you see a lot of them, they look like they're completely untrained, and I've seen some of this as well. They don't even look like military. They look like they took them off the streets and gave them a uniform and a rifle. Straight bullies. This is what Nazis look like. This is it. So these people should be afraid, because you're not a legitimate organization, and we the people do not recognize you as one. I've seen videos of these people. They look really vulnerable. They look tasty. Like, don't take it out of context, right? But you keep going after women and the elderly. You're like a sweet lick, right? An easy hit. That's how I see these people. You could easily take out 3, 4, 5 of them, because they're not. They got the uniforms on, but I don't know how they could breathe with the face mask on. I mean, they got a lot to learn from the cartels, because they look just like the cartels, but they don't move. They don't move as well as them, right? So you go after women and the elderly, you're gonna get what's coming to you, and that is happening. Let's be clear. This is what's happening. They're not protecting the resources of the country from forced migration. They're not at the border closing down. They're not dealing with human trafficking and the sicarios over there. this is not what is going on. You're not shielding the country from a global infiltration. Maybe that was the idea at first, but what is actually happening right now is paramilitary domestic enforcement. That's what this shit is. The whole immigrant thing is a cover story now. They might as well say terrorists. They're going after civilians. There's a lot of elderly men, elderly women, children. That's what's going on, okay? And these guys, this guy that got arrested for the Palisades fire, his name is Rinderneck, cattle servant. Now, the reason I even wanted to talk about that is because we are the cattle in this scenario. They're telling us we're the sheep, we're the cows, we're the cattle. And this is what the career politicians, the generationally wealthy, the occult ruling classes, this is what they think of us. This is how they see us. And the reason for that is that cattle, like, cows and pigs, they show no aggression toward the humans that are keeping them in those factory farms. They show no aggression. They're harmless. They'll never attack their captors. That's what we are. Okay? We're animals that display no aggression towards their owners. They own us, right? There would be no factory farming if these animals were aggressive by nature, but they aren't. They aren't aggressive. Sure, you can hunt a cow or a bear and shoot one, right? But you would not be able to keep wild animals and make them do what you want. We do that to cattle, and that's why we call them cattle, because they never fight back. Now, the answer to healing this world and to have freedom for all, really, it's not aggression. So I've been talking a lot about aggression the past 2 weeks. I know that that's not ultimately the answer that will fix anything. It won't fix anything. The answer is morality. It's mastery of the self, right? Mastering your behavior, understanding human behavior and communication. 99% of the time, that is what we need to focus on. But there comes a time where the criminals and the abusers get out of control. And when they do, they must be spoken to in their own language, the language that they understand. And that is the language of violence. They understand only the physical realm. They understand group dynamics. They understand rule by force. There are people like that don't understand anything but taking somebody by the neck and making them do something. Now, a lot of that is tragic because it's just because of how they grew up, how they've been treated. I acknowledge that, right? But when they're the ones with the uniform and the gun, and they're emboldened by the government that is controlling all the resources and controlling the armed forces, they need to be spoken to in that language. And it's a language that I understand as well. It's not the only language I speak, but I understand that language that they speak in the streets, right? Talking about fighting back and war and talking about God will judge our enemies, and they got the Punisher skull in their truck. I've dealt with some of these guys before. They're like real trash and scum. They got this. Not everybody in the military is like this, but there are people like this, and you know it if you are in the police and military. There are guys like this that are just fucking soft bullies. They're pack animals in the worst way, and they're the worst. They feel so. They have such a negative, destructive, cannibalistic view of humanity itself. They're the worst, and they only understand the physical. They're like really crude, right? That's the language they speak. And I consider myself a bit of a translator then, really, is what I'm doing. I want to speak the language of civilization and reason and beauty and art. I can speak that language too. But I can translate that into the language of violence. And that is what I am doing here on this show. Not only saying that to you, but also saying that to the enemies, to any enemies that may be watching, okay? And I think it would be, we're going to keep the show to an hour, so maybe we'll take 5 minutes to show you what the enemies look like to me, because I've been talking about them, but I want you to see them. Not necessarily these guys, but we're going to go to Reddit as I did last week. Maybe this is conspiracy. Thank you, by the way, to the conspiracy subreddit. I post my show there every week. Get some views there. So we're going to go to the Illinois subreddit. I don't know what's going to be. Usually it's a whole lot of things, right? But okay, this caught me off guard. Oh man. Well, I love that cow costume. That is serious. Now that is not cattle. That is not your average cattle. Oh my god, the penguins. I love penguins. Good. I like this. I like this that we're having some fun. Now we see these guys in uniforms in the background, and you see these guys protesting. I like that to lighten the mood a bit, and maybe even one of these guys behind that uniform may crack a smile. Okay. Good. Broadview. ICE attempts to arrest individual at their residence. Let's see this. Okay, you see a guy. Yeah, I don't think this guy's exactly a serial killer. And you got two guys, right? They're trying to take him down. They can't. They can't. It's 2-on-1. It took them a bit. And you see these are they say police. They say border patrol. But they're basically decked out in military outfits. But these aren't the guys with rifles, so I don't know. Do they even have handcuffs? Because I see a lot of these guys using zip ties. What the fuck is going on here, guys? And I've seen a few of these. When I say these guys look tasty, this is who I'm talking about. Because they could be easily ambushed. They seem to be untrained. There seems to be a lot of untrained militia type paramilitary people that are just causing violence to people in the streets. Now, if this is his house, I mean, this is, oh, it's curious. I wonder what that emblem is. I don't know. Black masks, right? Now there are a lot of these. I really should have saved one of them. I saw. Okay, so let me try to see if I can find this. ICE arrest woman, because I saw them taking down an older lady. ICE arrest father and mother of child in front of her. Okay, this is not the one. But I've seen some of these that are just really disgusting. And she was screaming and crying, all of this. Look at this. Now they're not taking them. It seems like they're just getting the. Look at this. Look at this. What they're doing to this girl's dad, right? They have to watch these guys they're in front of Burlington Coat Factory on Kedzie in Chicago. Okay, this is an area that I drive past. And they have to sit there like fucking trash. They're taking them away for what? And why should we accept this? Now, okay, he's wearing his hat backwards, right? You might say, oh, maybe that guy's not a saint. Now what? Are they going to take them as well? Look at this guy with the glasses on. Now this is the thing. This guy's harmless. I think I'd easily like that guy 5 rounds in the octagon. I don't think he can do shit, but that's the thing. They're a gang. They're all together. There's 4 of them, right? ICE harassing 2 15-year-olds without a parent. Now some of these, you have to take it with a grain of salt, right? You don't know the background to these videos just because they're saying ICE. You don't know who it is. You don't know if the data is correct, right? But we can see that this is clearly happening. You could verify a lot of this. And look at this, busting out of cars, right? This is supposed to be law enforcement. This kind of shit, you should get killed for this right here, like no questions. Walking out like this, they haven't identified themselves. You think you can do this to people? This is crazy. This is the shit that I'm talking about, right? Let's play the audio. I forgot I can actually play the audio for you.
I mean, I have school ID.
Let me see that. Have you got that?
I don't got,
Why was it?
Asking for identification, right?
And why are you showing class right now?
Because we don't got school right now.
Yeah, what's up?
Because teacher parent conference.
Where you guys live? Where? Give me an address, bro. I'm not trying to mess with you. I'm so nervous. Relax.
Huh?
And then if you just tell me that you were born here and give me an ID, you'll be good.
I was born here, but I don't got ID.
You don't have no ID?
No.
You got? Can you do facial?
Born here.
That's it. We'll take care of it real quick. We'll be in and out.
real quick, there's no here. Nobody owns an entire country. This is the shit. I've had this conversation with people, the whole immigration debate. And listen, I'm not just saying this because I'm an immigrant. I don't give a fuck. I'll risk everything, and I don't need to be in a place that I'm not welcome. This is the thing. I'll go back to my country, whatever my country is. But it's not real. This is how totalitarianism starts. And this is why I don't go back to the Constitution or the Magna Carta. I go only to natural law. Because if you accept the concept of a standing army, a military, and that a group of people actually owns this entire thing, an entire nation, you've already opened the door to be treated like this. And it happens every few years, it seems, right? It took them 200, 300 years to make it happen in America, but they're going to make it happen here. And you guys are going to be really fucking surprised when you're going to be living in the next Nazi Germany. So before it gets there, if you love your kids, if you love your family, I suggest you get way more militant about this shit. Even if it's just speech, right? Even if you're going to speak the language of art and beauty, do it in a powerful way. We need people's voices to get a lot stronger. We need a lot more cameras on people speaking the truth. We need a lot more people who have things to say, because all of you do it and do that thing that you were thinking about, but because of perfectionism you never got around to it. Shout out to all my friends that I hope soon will be on the show with me, or writing their book, or making their songs. It's about time to do it, because the country is going away. Like George Carlin said, pack your shit, folks. We're going away. The earth will be fine. The earth will stay, but the human species is going away. But I'll be here on episode 150 next week. Thank you for joining me on This Week in Tyranny. Thanks for being around and watching this chaotic broadcast. Oh, I'm out of focus. We're gonna watch this back, learn some lessons, and come back at you next week on This Week in Tyranny.